Welkom bij Ouderverstoting Overwinnen. Vandaag weer een hele goede aflevering waarin we kijken naar een video van Dr. David Clark. Hij heeft een interview met Laurel Slate Wagoner. En ze heeft een aantal hele goede boeken geschreven. Ze gaan het nu hebben over Don't Let Their Crazy Make Your Kids Crazy. Dus we hebben het weer over wanneer je in een situatie zit waarbij je dus niet weg kan. Of je hebt die ex-partner nog in je leven. Die dus allemaal, die echt je kinderen aan het manipuleren is. Wat kan je daartegen doen? Hele mooie aflevering. Kijken naar. Ik ben heel benieuwd wat jullie vinden. Laat een reactie achter in de comments op YouTube. Geef een like als je meer van dit soort content wil. Bedankt voor het kijken en let op.
This is Dr. David E. Clark, and I'm sitting here with my dear friend and counseling associate, Laurel Slade Wagoner. And this is a joint podcast. Of course, my podcast is the I Don't Want a Divorce podcast. Lori, what's yours?
Help, I have a narcissist in my life.
And we do a lot of work with abuse situations, and we take it from different angles. She has written 2 books, and we're here to talk about, of course, her second and most recent book, Don't Let Their Crazy Make Your Kids Crazy. Now, what was your first book? Just mention a few things about the first book.
The first book was Don't Let Their Crazy Make You Crazy. So that's all about how you can maintain your sanity and strength and stay strong if you have a narcissist in your life. You're perhaps somebody you're trying to co-parent with, or a narcissistic adult child or extended family members, someone that you can't just get away from. So that book helps you to stay strong. This book is how to equip your children to deal with their narcissistic parent.
Right. Well, I think, and Laura didn't ask me to say this, but everyone that bought the first book, if you've got children, needs to buy this book too. It's a great companion volume. Awesome, practical, biblical, of course, very spiritual. Now, before I forget, let's do a little marketing here. I'm going to mention my website, and then you mention your website. If folks want more information on what we do and the products that we have. And we both do phone advice services. 95% of what we do these days. Yes. A few people in person, but not many. We can wear whatever we want to and put our feet up and talk to people. So my website is just very simply David E. Clark, Clark with an E, David E. Clark, PhD.com. And all my stuff's there. And what's your website, Lori?
Is Slade-Wagoner-CounselingServices.com.
Okay, well, let's talk about Don't Let Their Crazy Make Your Kids Crazy. So we're just going to walk through some questions here, and people can get a good flavor for what the book's about. And again, we were talking about this the other day. If you're a grandparent and you're listening, or a family member, right?
Yes, I have a lot of clients that are actually grandparents who have maybe a son or a daughter who is married to someone who's narcissistic. And so the grandparents spend a lot of time with the children, or maybe they're not even allowed to spend time with the children, but at least the grandparents are learning what they can do if they do have access to those children, how they can come alongside of them and help them. Right,
the grandparents can be very important. We're both grandparents. Shocking because we're so young looking and so vital, but we're grandparents, and they have it for themselves, but also sometimes it's easier if someone buys a book and gives it to you. I don't know, nothing wrong with that either. Okay, so let's start with a very simple question. What made you write this particular book about the kids?
Well, like you were saying earlier, you and I have overlapping careers, and you see, I'm sure, just as much as I do, we see people in our office all the time that have somebody who's narcissistic in their lives, and it shreds them. It shreds their hearts, it erodes their immune system, and so they need tools. These people need tools, and so the kids are no exception. So this book really helps someone be able to learn how to co-parent or try to co-parent with someone who's narcissistic, and then equip their children to be strong and to neutralize some of those things like narcissistic triangulation and all that narcissistic bribery.
Because these guys never quit, right? I mean, they're not changing, so you have to manage.
Right. I say that narcissistic individuals are not capable of co-parenting. So it's our job as the non-narcissistic parent to teach and train and equip our children for life, because those narcissistic parents aren't going to do it. They're self-serving.
Yeah. Well, as I read the book, it's a great training program, very specific, example after example, dialogues, how the kids can respond, how you can train the kids to respond in all the different scenarios. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's exactly what they need. Otherwise, you don't know what to do.
Right. And you feel hopeless and you feel overpowered by that narcissist.
Very good. Well, it's a very needed book. Okay, second question. Here's a good one. What is narcissistic control and manipulation, and why is it so harmful to the children?
Well, some of what we were just talking about. So with narcissism, they cannot relate to people in a healthy way. So they try to overpower. So you get a lot of narcissistic rage, you get that derailing, you get the triangulation, pitting, smear campaigns against you. They're just trying to maintain control over all circumstances and other people. They will control their children, and they'll also try to control your relationship with your children. They have to be in control, and they're ruthless, and they're self-serving.
Even when your kids aren't with them, they're never stopping these efforts.
Right, exactly. So they're creating alignments. They will sabotage, if you're in a legal battle with them, they will sabotage counseling, as you've seen. They won't give permission for the kids to be treated, or they'll try to triangulate with a counselor. They want what they want when they want it, and they don't care if it hurts their children or not.
Well, we know these sweet, passive Christian counselors. We won't mention any names, but they're sucked in almost immediately. These people are, of course, especially the guys, ladies too, are masters of the genre. They lie so beautifully, and they get the counselor on their side, and then you're the bad guy once again.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And this leaves the manipulation leaves more relational and emotional scars. With physical abuse, we can always call in an abuse report, as you know. But with emotional abuse, it's just a gray area, and these kids are left with no avocation. There's no one to advocate on their behalf.
Yeah, and nobody cares.
Right.
Pastors, church leaders, even family, they don't see it. And so, they don't believe it.
Right. They don't believe that the manipulation is abuse. Yeah. And you and I both know that it is.
Boy, it does so much damage. Yeah. And of course, these guys, they want to continue to win, right? And they want, if you're the other parent, you're the bad guy. You have to be the bad guy.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that's where the triangulation and the smear campaigns come in. So some of them will fight tooth and nail so that they don't have to pay child support, which is just despicable to me and abusive to the kids.
Yeah. So we want the kids to understand what dad, let's say it's dad is the abuser, what he's doing without letting him know they know, I guess, and being able to manage it so they're not destroyed. Right. And over-controlled and all that.
Well, and that's a slippery slope. I get asked all the time, do I tell my children that he's narcissistic or she, about their narcissistic parent? And your goal is to be a safe place for your child. So you don't call their parent a narcissist, but if you use, and this is what a lot of the book centers on, is teaching your children what healthy relating is so that they can draw their own conclusions about how destructive their narcissistic parent's behavior is.
Right. You'd love to say, screaming your head off, yes, your dad's a narcissist. What, are you out of your mind, Timmy? Of course. No. Right. Of course, they'll tell dad, and you'll shove it down your throat. Right. You don't need that.
Right. Right. So you're better off to work with the child. There's no sense confronting the narcissist. He or she will not listen, will not modify their behavior. So you're better off teaching your children. And it is age-appropriate truth. You and I both support that. So if you're asked directly on a question, you have to be a safe place. Your children have to know that they can trust you and that you will speak truth, but you don't need to use words like irresponsible or narcissist or anything shaming like that.
Part of our work is helping the codependents stop all the attempts to change and to lecture and to reason with the narcissist. Just don't waste your time. Exactly. It makes it worse, not better, and it doesn't change anyway.
Exactly. And the Holy Word says explicitly in several places, do not confront someone who's foolish.
Right. And this is a fool.
Right. Right. This is what the Bible calls foolishness.
Susie, I'd like you to know your dad is a fool. Well, you can't say that either. Right. But you can quote the scriptures and describe the activity, the behavior, right?
Right. Focus on the fruit.
Okay, here's a good question. Here's a good global question. And of course, the book is covering this in detail. But how in the world do you co-parent with a narcissist? Because that's what you have to do.
Well, and that's where the bad news is. I do not believe that you can co-parent with a narcissist. So co-parenting requires collaboration. It requires cooperation. So they will not co-parent. So you set your expectations on something more realistic, which is parallel parenting. So parallel parenting is you take responsibility for teaching and training your child. You don't try to enlist them at all. The narcissist is not going to collaborate with you. So you get to that place of acceptance that co-parenting is not a possibility. So you want to try to figure out a way by not only teaching your children, but then figure out a way to help all that narcissistic control and manipulation be neutralized. So that's what you have to get to the place of accepting, is you're not going to be able to co-parent.
Right. There's only one parent in this scenario.
Exactly. And in the first book I said they're like a 3T. I called them. At times they're like a toddler having a temper tantrum. At times they're like an entitled teenager. And at other times they're like a terrorist trying to get people to make decisions out of fear, obligation, or guilt. So you're better off working with your children than trying to work with a narcissist.
Right. Sometimes we've seen this. You can't expect this, and they never quit. But if they find a new woman, and you'd like to warn her off, but nonetheless, if they get remarried or there was somebody new and there's other kids, sometimes there's a lessening, right? Maybe a little bit of a break. Mm-hmm. But you can't count on that because they still want to win. These are still my kids.
And you just said something important. They want to win. They want to be in control all the time. And kids, it's collateral damage. Their hearts are broken. They're caught in the middle. They're treated as pawns. So. Yeah.
Of course, then you've seen this a million times. They'll go underground for a while. They're wrapped up in the new romance or love bombing the new victim. But they can come back with a vengeance out of nowhere.
Right.
And here are my rights. It says in the divorce agreement, I want to see Johnny and Susie and all the rest.
And that's what they do throughout the court process. When you're getting a divorce from a narcissist, they'll drag you back into court for every little thing. If you're 2 minutes late, they're not thinking of the children at all.
Right. They hire these sleazeball attorneys. Oh, man alive. Just the worst snake they can find. And then we're spending all the money just to make you suffer.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So they don't care how much money they have to spend as long as you're suffering and they're getting what they want. Right. And a lot of them will spend a lot of money not to have to spend a lot of money on child support.
Well, right. They could care less about the kids, obviously. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, moving along. What should you do? This is very specific. And of course, this happens all the time. When the kids starting to realize, I don't want to be with that guy. I'd rather not. What should you do if your child doesn't want a timeshare at their narcissistic parent's house? I don't want to see dad this weekend or whatever it is.
Yes, and that happens a lot because as the kids, if you're doing your job and teaching the children what healthy relating is, they'll eventually see that they're being emotionally abandoned. They're being maybe left to play on their devices all day. They're not getting quality attention, and maybe they don't want to go over and timeshare anymore.
It's actually a good sign, right? They're getting it. This guy's a jerk, and he hurts me.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do you do as a mom or dad and they come and say, look, I don't want to spend time?
Yeah, and I've worked with several people who try to force the children to timeshare because they don't want to be out of compliance and they don't want to be dragged back into court. And so, but a more effective way to handle that circumstance is start charting, start documenting. So you make a chart and you put the timeshare day and you put what the child said as to why they don't want to timeshare. And if it's something legitimate, like they're afraid of being screamed at, or mommy or daddy drinks a lot of alcohol, or and I have to feed myself and my siblings, or different things like that, you cannot become abusive yourself and force that child into an emotionally and or physically unsafe environment. So you document, you chart what the child said, and you chart what you did. You work with the child, you talk about their feelings, you help them process it, but you don't force them to timeshare that way. And hire a good attorney, one that understands what they call parental alienation syndrome, just an attorney who understands personality disorders and narcissism, and who has good connections with guardian ad litems and parent coordinators and parent evaluators, because the more eyes you can get on it, the less power the narcissist has.
Right. And you don't want the weak, passive, even Christian attorney There are some very good Christian ones, but there are some that aren't. Yeah, and God doesn't care who the attorney's spiritual life is like, as long as they're tough and will defend. Because some of these attorneys I've seen, you've seen it too, they'll fade. They get tired of the narcissist, it bothers them, and they'll dump you.
Right, or they'll say you have to make them timeshare or you'll be in compliance because they're only thinking of themselves. So you want an attorney that understands this, and then you show them that chart, and you show them that the child does not want a timeshare over there.
Right, you fire that attorney, even if you're a nice person. You're fired. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, that's like Trump. You're fired. Well, right, and that's necessary sometimes. Okay, yeah, very good. And again, that's all that charting is for legal purposes potentially.
Absolutely.
Right? Hey, here's the deal.
And like I said, you use your discernment. If they're saying I don't want to go to mom or dad's house because they have to do chores, that's not a legitimate reason. You still work through, you problem solve through what they can do to make that better, and they still have to do chores over there. But if it's something that warrants emotional abuse, neglect, spiritual abuse, physical abuse, any of that, then you don't force them to timeshare.
Right. Well, what's rich is that the dirtball, abuser is accusing you of parental alienation syndrome.
Yes.
Because you're poisoning the kids. Well, it's ridiculous. That's just the opposite.
But with the chart, and you document all that and get it to a good attorney, you
can shove that piece by piece down his stupid throat. Right, if you need to. And let the attorney take care of it, of course. Because as you're saying, you don't, no direct approach with these guys. No. Right. Okay.
And then I also would suggest if you're in a legal battle with someone who's narcissistic, don't talk to them directly, written form only, and maybe instead of written form, even there, they weaponize things and they become aggressive. So there's parenting apps out there. One's called Our Family Wizard, and one's called Talking Parents.
I've heard of those. Yeah, very good.
And then that way they flag for aggressive language and they're admissible in court. So sometimes text conversations aren't admissible because they can doctor them up. Right. So this way everything's admissible. So you just keep reducing the exposure to yourself if you're in a legal battle with them. So the narcissist, you insulate yourself, you stop all communication except for those apps.
Of course, I'm always telling these ladies, especially the ones that leave, or the men, even though it's an ongoing issue and a nightmare, it's a less of a nightmare because you're away from him. Yeah. Whoever the abuser is, oh my God, it's still worth it.
And they think they'll have less control. I'm sure you see this too with the codependency. They think that they're going to have less control over their children by getting a divorce. But actually, they'll have more. Right. They'll be able to have more influence in that child's life.
Right. Half the time, you have them. That's exactly right. And it will make a difference.
Right. So you don't want to teach your children that you condone that narcissistic behavior. You take a stand for righteousness, and you teach them to do the same.
Good stuff. Okay, one more question. How can children have a healthy relationship with their narcissistic parent?
That's a tough one. So they have to figure out and get to the place of acceptance. What is that narcissistic parent capable of? What can they do with that narcissistic parent so their hearts don't get shattered and that they're not in danger? So some of my clients, because I worked with children and teens for years.
I know you did. Years and years. I sent many to you because I wouldn't see them myself.
Exactly. And I know this personally. So they have to get to a place of where can they enjoy that narcissistic parent. So sometimes it's reduced to just going out to lunch and having superficial conversations, and they don't spend the night there, or they certainly don't try to have a heart-to-heart conversation with the narcissist. They're not capable of that. But what are the narcissists capable of? A lot of them are capable of fun. Right. So they like to be Disneyland dad or Disneyland mom, so that's all they're going to get. So that's how the kids they have to go through that grieving process and grieve what their narcissistic parent isn't, and then accept what they are and figure out how to have a healthy relationship that way.
Well, yeah. I tell my people, you want the kids to eventually realize, okay, I love my dad. Let's say dad's the narcissist. I love my dad, but here's what dad's about. Here's the truth, and I'm maneuvering around. Yeah, this superficial relationship, it's whatever they can do, entertain, but they're capable of. But yeah, it doesn't go much further than that.
Some of my young clients have told me that even eating out is too much because they have to sit face to face and come up with conversations. So they only do activity-oriented things like going to see a movie together or going golfing or going to a sporting event or something like that.
Yeah,
So
that's smart.
the kids have to figure out where they can enjoy that narcissistic parent.
Yeah, that's smart. Well, this book is filled with all kinds of specific strategies. It's not theory. It's very practical. Very good. I love it. Great cover, too, with the shield. Little kid raising his arms in triumph. Yes, I like it.
Well, and God says that He is our shield, so that's why I chose shield.
Well, yeah, perfect. Okay. And I love doing this with you, And if the people agree, let us know. If you want Laurel and I to do more of this together, then you give us some topics, things you'd like us to talk about. We can talk about anything. We've been at it long enough. We know things.
Right, and both of us work with families, couples, individuals, so
Yeah.
where we have in the past a lot. So and we have a lot of overlap in our careers.
Yeah, you have a lot of time together working with cases. Yeah, talking about people and referring. Yeah.
Well, you are really good. In your book, Enough is Enough, you're really good at giving people strategies to leave an abusive relationship.
Yeah, when you're ready, that's the book for you, right? Yeah. When you're ready to actually make, it might take you months or a year or two, but when you're ready to move, right.
And mine is more focused on if you can't separate from that person, then what are you going to, you need skills, you need tools to be able to interact with them so you don't lose your sanity and strength. So
if you're not going to leave or can't leave, or as long as you have to stay, and then even after the divorce, it keeps on going. So I think these books all work together. You have to buy all 3 of these books. Well, that's what we're saying.
Well, even in your Enough book, you say sometimes you can't leave financially right away. So you have to figure out how you're going to coexist without them overpowering you.
Well, a lot of these ladies, they're not strong enough. It takes time to get strong enough to leave, because they're going to be facing what we're talking about here with the kids and all. They got to get ready for that.
Right.
This book is a great primer for that too. Okay, let's mention our websites again, because nobody else will. And then we'll close this down.
So your website.
Yes, David E. Clark, Clark with the E on the end. It's silent, but it's important to me. davideclarkphd.com. So what's your website?
It's Slade, SLADE, Wagoner, WAGGONER, counselingservices.com. You can also sign up to be an email subscriber, so on the website.
Yeah.
And then that way, if you are part of the email community, then about once a month I send out an email, maybe with some kind of helpful tool.
Yeah, that's great. Very good.
And podcast links, and also when we're on the radio.
Right.